What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my unit review and builds guide for Ascended Hilda, Rearmed Lif, and Monica. So Ascended Hilda this time is also an axe infantry unit and she's got Fuming Free Kugel as her preferred weapon. So this weapon definitely takes an inspiration from the original Free Kugel weapon refine, with the fact that it's a hybrid weapon, providing both the support to her allies and also helping her in the combat. So unlike the Free Kugel weapon refine, this weapon does have -1 special cooldown built into it. So she can easily have Vital Astra at 1 cooldown, and the support part of this weapon allows you to give 20% damage reduction to them on foe's first attack and also +3 to all of their stats. Now this support is only provided if she has not entered into the combat in that phase, or if the allies within 2 spaces of her have more defense than her. So it's pretty easy to activate her support conditions, especially if you just have safe tanks surrounding her, and this kind of supportive effect is going to be a lot better on faster save units like Ascended Fiorm and Valentine Lucina, Winter Manuela, because they can get partial null follow-up from Hardy Fighter or even have access to Savvy Fighter. So this kind of damage reduction can help them, and the extra speed is also really helpful. The second part of this weapon, which is going to be active for Hilda's combat, is only given to her if she's solo or if she's not within any ally that has got more defense than her in 2 spaces. So she can get +6 attack and speed in combat, and she can reduce the damage from foe's first attack by 40%. And finally, she can deal true damage based on her speed depending on her maximum special cooldown count. So just to simplify it a bit more, if she's running a 1 cooldown special like Vital Astra, then she's going to be getting 30% true damage based on her speed. If you're going to be running her with Luna, which is a 2 cooldown special with her weapon, then she can get 40% true damage based on her speed. And finally, if you run her with something like Aether, that's a 4 cooldown special, then she can get 60% true damage based on her speed. So at first it might seem like Hilda is just another fast unit, but she hits deceptively hard with this effect. Unfortunately, this true damage is not added to the AoE specials, which is a bit of a bummer because I really love using melee AoE units. But unfortunately, Hilda cannot really run those specials and get the true damage out of that effect. So you should always be running specials like Luna or even run Vital Astra, which doubles down on her speed. So Hilda can hit really hard with her base 42 attack and with this true damage. And she can also provide that support with the support part of her weapon. And she is going to be pretty fast with that base 43 speed and also having super boon in it. So attack and speed are going to be the main stats of Hilda, as stacking up more speed is going to be giving you more true damage, and especially if you run Vital Astra, then you can get even more benefit out of her speed. Hilda's base kit also has attack speed solo 4, which does have good synergy with the solo condition of the combat part of her weapon, and she brings velocity 3 as a new damage reduction skill. So it's a speed based damage reduction skill like Spurn, Close Call, but the secondary effect of this damage reduction skill provides you with Null Guard, and that is just absolutely amazing, and in my opinion makes it the best speed based damage reduction skill that you can have. Because a lot of tanks are going to be having guard in their weapon like Brave Edelgard, or they're going to be running guard skills like these stand skills. So for a fast unit that really relies on their special, this kind of null guard effect can be really useful while also getting the damage reduction. And sometimes triggering the special can essentially win you the matchup against a pretty bulky unit. And Hilda can make pretty good use out of this skill because she does depend on her specials to go off so that she can get that massive true damage. She also has Joint Drive speed, which is decent for supporting the allies and also benefiting in the combat itself. So overall, Hilda is a pretty nice hybrid unit who can provide you with the support, which is not going to be on the level of like Elimine or Flame or Nifl's damage reduction, but she does provide you with the extra stats to kind of make up for that. And the extra stats can definitely help you in meeting speed checks or not getting doubled, especially if you're using her with a fast save tank, for example. So that can definitely be helpful. And then with her power, she could be used as a cleanup unit. And she can, oh boy, she can definitely clean up with how hard she can hit with this kind of true damage. Now, even though she is going to be nice in the combat and also as a support unit, a lot of people are going to be wanting to fodder her for velocity, and this kind of skill could be run on any kind of unit that wants to run a damage reduction skill. And some units who would like to have this are going to be the units which really want their specials to go off. So Ascended Marita is one of the better users of godlike reflexes after Flame Tribe Lin because of the mini special spiral built into her weapon. So if you can pre-charge her special with some support, she can just loop that special on her own with her weapon And velocity can definitely help you in looping that, because in the combat, once godlike reflexes triggers, Marita is going to be counter-attacking, and that is going to be really helpful for looping up godlike reflexes, which is going to be a 2 cooldown special. So if you're running a build like this on her, then it's definitely pretty nice. Carla and Ira have been compared for many years, and Carla definitely got an edge with the resplendent stats, and now she can also get the null guard from velocity and also getting the damage reduction. So Ira does have the full tempo effect built into her weapon, but Carla can pretty much get the null follow-up in her weapon and also be really fast, and also get the null guard with the velocity, so it can be pretty nice. And it basically allows you to trigger Vital Astra twice in a single combat if the opponent can counterattack, which is going to be doing massive damage with her high speed. Brave Marth also relies on his special for his playstyle, so this could be a good investment at max investment or high investment. And you can obviously run this with units who have special acceleration in their weapon, like Shez for example, so this allows her to just retaliate back with Vital Astra and not be bothered by guard. And it can also be nice on Fallen Ike, because he does want to retaliate with Mayhem Aether. And even though Vital Astra is used as a damaging special on Shez and Ryoma, they can still retaliate back with it reliably, thanks to the null guard provided by velocity. Hilda's base kit is already pretty nice, so all you need to do is give her reposition and just run a solo Sacred Seal on her, and you should be done. Keep in mind that Ascended units can get free Ascended asset without spending any florets, so you can just ascend her Speed IV, which is going to be most useful for getting more true damage and also for outspeeding a lot of threats. And if you want to use her in Aether Raids offense for a save tank, then you can definitely use her on a budget and simply have Distant Guard as a supportive Sacred Seal, and maybe run a Link skill so that you can give the visible buffs to your allies. And like I said before, the faster save tanks definitely appreciate this kind of support, because the damage reduction she provides is only on the foe's first hit. So yeah, it's better that your save tank can just avoid the doubles. A lot of these slower save tanks are going to be preferring to have Flane or Illimine instead for that 40% damage reduction pretty much. So she is kind of competing with Nifl in that regard. Nifl can provide you with the speed and resistance with Domain of Ice, but Hilda provides you with the Spectrum buff and can also hit a lot harder than Nifl. You can also invest a bit more into her by running Attack Speed Ideal 4, and this is going to be giving you more offenses than the solo skill, and it also does not have the solo condition, which is going to be something a lot of people dislike. So having more speed is always going to be helpful, and Vital Astra can be run on Hilda with Time Pulse so that she can pre-charge it. Compared to running Luna, you're pretty much losing out on like 10% true damage, but you're gaining like damage reduction from Vital Astra, and the fact that this can be the highest damaging, lowest cooldown special that Hilda can have access to, and you can easily pre-charge this with Time Pulse. And this is especially really helpful because Hilda does not have null follow-up in her weapon or in her base kit. So a lot of follow-up negation units can pretty much stop her from doubling and then triggering her special on her follow-up. So that's why having a pre-charged Vital Astra means that you can pretty much hit them on your first hit for a lot of damage with the speed-based true damage that you can get. And since null follow-up is going to be a bit of a concern, you can also run that in her slot B, and she's still going to be able to get like 58% damage reduction with this kind of build by pre-charging Vital Astra. So it's not all that bad. With this build which I showed before, with Velocity, her weapon, and Vital Astra, you can get 75% damage reduction. So it's definitely a bit of a loss in the damage reduction, but having null follow-up can definitely help you in many matchups. You can also use her with a more player phase oriented build by running Surge Sparrow, and with this kind of build, I would definitely recommend giving her some kind of external null follow-up so that she can double the follow-up negation units and trigger her Luna to do a lot of damage and also heal up a lot of HP. Finally, if you do plus and merge her, then she could be used in Arena with Distant Dart build, where she can take on a lot of ranged threats because of her damage reduction and just dispose them because of doing so much true damage with her weapon and also hitting really hard with Vital Astra. This build is not the most optimal build, so that's why I'm showing it at the end, but it can definitely be a pretty fun build if you're just wanting to try some new options on your Hilda. So you can run Special Spiral on her and provide her with some kind of external null follow-up, and also run Speed Smoke on her. So here we are running a 4-turn special in Aether. So with this build, whenever she triggers her special, she's going to be able to do 42 true damage, which is pretty insane. So it's definitely fun build, not the most optimal, and definitely needs some support and setup. Once your Special Spiral is set up, you can have Aether as a 2 cooldown special and trigger this pretty easily in a single round of combat with Flashing Blade and do a lot of damage and kill a lot of tanks. Rearmed Lif is a Sword Cavalier this time with Arcane Elutnir as the arcane weapon, which could be given to a lot of the other sword units as well, and I've already made a complete video explaining the rearmed mechanic and arcane weapons and also going over the best options for Arcane Elutnir, so you can check them out in the description. But as for Lif himself, he can definitely benefit from this weapon because of his stat spread, having low speed and having high attack and defense as a Cavalier. This weapon gives a lot of the things which a Cavalier would need, so he's got -1 special cooldown, making open the future as a 2 cooldown special, and he can also get -6 attack and defense debuff on the enemy, getting a guaranteed follow-up attack and also having the follow-up negation with this weapon, and also inflicting guard on the opponent. So a pretty good defensive weapon honestly, and this allows him to definitely function pretty well as a bulky Cavalier. He does have Attack Defense Clash 4 as the new skill, and unfortunately cannot really get the tier 4 version of the Clash skill and Arcane Elutnir at the same time, but for Lif himself, this is going to be a pretty nice skill because his attack and defense is pretty high, so having the debuff neutralization with this kind of skill is going to be quite helpful. Just like the original version of Lif, he does have Deadly Balance, which is not the most impressive slot B skill, but it's still pretty nice. So it does provide him with -5 attack and defense debuff on the foe, and he can get special cooldown charge on foes' attacks, so this can allow him to retaliate back with Open the Future, which is pretty nice for the enemy phase. And he also has attack defense menace. Rearmed Lif is easily one of the best fodder units in the game, but I wouldn't really say that he's as good of a unit as he is as a fodder unit, mainly because he's missing Canto as a Cavalier, and that's a pretty big deal. And the ceiling of the Cavaliers has been set pretty high by nukes like Brave Selif, Legendary Sigurd, and Brave Erica for example, so you need to have some kind of unique mechanic to really stand out, hit really hard, or at the very least have Canto. But unfortunately, Rearmed Lif does not really have that, and with this kind of base kit, he's mostly going to be functioning in the enemy phase, trying to retaliate back with Open the Future and healing up some HP in that process. He can also function in the player phase with the auto double, but again, you're going to be missing out on the Canto effect. He does have good stats though, with having 43 base attack, which can allow him to hit pretty hard, and he also has good defense at base 41. But his resistance is definitely not that high compared to a lot of pure defensive units, and that's ultimately going to be the thing for a lot of defensive Cavaliers. They're just going to be having less stats than the pure defensive units. So Lif is not the most insane Sword Cavalier, but because you can fodder him and still use him as a unit in the combat, he's still pretty decent as a Sword Cavalier. Now for building him up, you don't really need to give him too much. You can just refine Arcane Elutnir for defense and run him with reposition and have attack defense catch, which does have good synergy with the menace skill, and it also does not have a solo condition, so it could be helpful. And if you want to invest a bit more into him, then attack defense near trace is something that you can feed him up. And this is a build for using him in Aether Raids offense as a Gale Force initiator. So you can just target Medias so that you can fall into the Wings of Mercy range of your allies while still triggering Gale Force and killing Medias in the process. And because of Arcane Elutnir's attack debuff, Heavy Blade does become a bit easier to trigger, and that's why going with the attack refine is going to be helping you, because it's pretty insane to trigger Heavy Blade reliably in Aether Raids. And as someone who does Gale Force a lot and majority for his matches, any kind of extra attack is always good, honestly. So even though that attack boost from Refine might seem measly, it is still going to be helping you in some matchups, and attack defense clash is also really helpful. So because of having Arcane Elutnir, Gale Force becomes a 4-turn special, and you can easily trigger this with Heavy Blade. You can also run him with Asker and Peony to provide him with even more attack and speed, so that is always helpful. He's going to be facing competition from Brave Selif in this role, and Selif just has extra movement and also has Miracle in his weapon to be a lot more reliable Wings of Mercy beacon, but Rearmed Lif can also do the similar thing by running this kind of build in Aether Raids offense. And finally, if you do plus and merge him, then you can try and run him in Arena and use Distance Storm so that you can one-shot units with your Open the Future and by using Deadly Balance. And because of Deadly Balance being a 300 SP slot B skill, if you run 300 SP slot A and slot C skill, then he can essentially score like a 185 BST unit, which is not really that bad for a Cavalier. So you're going to be missing out on the Trace skill and the whole Canto, but he's mainly going to be functioning as an enemy phase Cavalier. But the good thing is that Distance Storm can give you the extra attack in the player phase as well, so it could help you in the player phase. And Distance Storm's chip damage is not the biggest deal when he can heal up HP in the combat with his special. Monica is a blue infantry mage with Wind Genesis as her preferred weapon, so this provides her with -1 special cooldown, and at start of turn, if she's at or above 25% HP, then she can get visible attack and speed buff, and she also gets the Desperation status for 1 turn. Keep in mind that this is a visible status and it's not something that she gets in combat. But as for the in-combat effects, the weapon also has that. So again, if she's at or above 25% HP, then she can get the following effects in combat. First of all, she can get +6 attack and speed in combat. And she can also get speed and resistance debuff on the enemy, depending on their maximum special cooldown count. Now there's something which I want to clarify. When this kind of skill refers to maximum special cooldown count, it is not talking about a special in a vacuum. Yes, Moonbow is a 2 cooldown special, but on a unit with -1 special cooldown weapon like Arcane Sword, Moonbow becomes a 1 turn special. So that's pretty much what it means by the maximum special cooldown value. So at the minimum, she's going to be able to get -3 speed and resistance debuff on opponent in combat, or if they have no special. And if they've got a 1 turn special, like a lot of the Vital Astra users with -1 special cooldown, then she's going to be able to inflict -9 speed and resistance debuff on them, which is really quite a lot. And a 2 cooldown special on the opponent nets her -7 speed and resistance debuff. And if they're running a 3 cooldown special, then she just gets -5 speed and resistance. So this is actually not a bad effect at all, and a lot of the meta threats are going to be having -1 special cooldown in their weapon, and they're going to be running stuff like Vital Astra, or they're going to be running, Hardy Fighter with Aegis or Sacred Cowl. And definitely hit pretty hard with her offenses and also the visible buff that she can get and the Desperation. Her stat spread is pretty nice for a nuke with having 43 base speed, which is always nice for Desperation, and she also has base 38 attack, which does have a super boon as well. Her base kit includes attack speed ideal 4 and also speed resistance tempo. Now the ideal skill has perfect synergy with her weapon because she's going to be at full HP and she can still enjoy Desperation, so it's not that hard to maintain the condition, and she can also buff herself up with this weapon. So incredible synergy in that regard, and she brings speed resistance tempo, which allows her to trigger Glimmer on the follow-up attack of hers in the Desperation range. So this can allow you to hit a lot of the safe tanks away from their Hardy Fighter. So your first hit is going to be on their Hardy Fighter special, and then the second hit is going to be when they do not have their special charged up. So this can definitely help you nuke, but keep in mind that like a lot of the mages, Monica also gets walled really hard by Deflect Magic and Hardy Fighter armors because mages have no way of piercing through the damage reduction. So until, we get some kind of special that can do that, Monica is going to be getting pretty hard walled by those kinds of far safe tanks who run Deflect Magic or just have damage reduction on foe's second attack. So definitely watch out for those units as they're going to be hard to nuke. And Monica does not really have null follow-up in her weapon, so she has to choose between null follow-up or speed resistance tempo for her slot B, but honestly it's not that big of a deal when we can easily give null follow-up externally nowadays with Infantry Speed Tactic on Brave Crom or Ascended Celica with Infantry null follow-up, or even Fallen Lilith providing you with the null follow-up effect. So overall, Monica can function as a pretty good nuke, but she's still missing a part which could really push her to the next level like a lot of mages, which is having a damage reduction piercing special. Speed resistance tempo is going to be a coveted skill which a lot of people are going to be wanting to have, so you can definitely put this on your fast mages like Brave Lysithea. Brave Lysithea definitely appreciates this quite a lot because she already has everything that she could want, and then you can run the Unity skill so that you can protect her from the debuffs, and with Dragon Fang, Time Pulse, you can hit extremely hard with the help of the tempo skill. You can also run this on a fast dragon like Adrift Female Corrin, who does rely on her weapon to retaliate back with a special, so it is always going to be having good synergy with the skills and weapons, which can provide you the special acceleration. So she can easily get the extra speed, which is really good for a speedy dragon, and reliably retaliate back with a special. And male Byleth can also try and mimic female Byleth by getting this tempo skill and by running attack speed Oath 4. You're not going to be having pre-charged Sublime Heaven, but sometimes that can actually help you against many of the Hardy Fighter armors, as you can trigger Sublime Heaven on the second hit, and you can actually pierce through the damage reduction of Deflect Magic, which a lot of mages cannot. So that is definitely an alternate build that you can run on Byleth. But I really like having the pre-charged Sublime Heaven honestly on him with Time Pulse, but still this is an option. And if you want to build up Monica, then she could just be built up with Savage Blow Inner Slotsy as a budget option, and you can just run Blade Session as a Sacred Seal to give her the most offenses. Like a lot of the mages who have -1 special cooldown in their weapon, she could be run as an AoE nuke, and the reason why a lot of mages make a better use out of this kind of AoE nuking build is because they can hit on the magical side, and on average units are going to be having lower resistance than they have defense. So this is definitely pretty nice for getting that AoE damage and also for just killing them. And even if Monica is not able to kill someone with the AoE hit and just her first attack, she still has the desperation so that she can finish off the opponent with her follow-up attack. And because she can do the self buff with this weapon, she can always have the visible attack buff, which can boost up her AoE damage. And Life and Death is needed with AoE build so that you can have higher visible attack for the AoE damage. If you want to invest a bit more into her, then you can definitely try and run Attack Speed Unity and Null Follow-Up. So Null Follow-Up is definitely something that she's missing, and with Time Pulse you can pretty much just pre-charge a 2 cooldown special like Glimmer or Moonbow or even Ruptured Sky. But because we're debuffing the opponent's resistance by quite a lot, Moonbow is not going to be giving you that much damage output, so usually Glimmer is preferred on mages. So you can also try and run this build if you really want to have Null Follow-Up, and because she does get the self buff to her attack and speed, in case she gets panicked or if she gets debuffed, then Attack Speed Unity can definitely help you. Monica can also be used competitively in Aether Raids defense in the Dark Season with Brattle Katria, and I would only suggest you to use her in the Dark Season because in the Anima Season and in the Chaos Season, Elemine is going to be there, and because the Desperation is a visible status, it could be shut down by Elemine and her false start, so that's why Dark Season is a lot easier to run her with. And she also has access to Medias, providing her with Unguard and also Resistance buff, and Triandra, who can potentially run Infantry Speed Tactic. So she would definitely want to get some kind of external Null Follow-Up through Ascended Celica with her Infantry Null Follow-Up, or even through Infantry Speed Tactic, so that she can quad attack and just hit consecutively 4 times because of having Desperation in her weapon. And the tempo effect with Ruptured Sky is really good because a lot of Dragon tanks do run Distant Counter Dragon Sacred Seal. So after you hit them once for their defensive special with Hardy Fighter, you can trigger your special on the second hit and then just do a lot of damage to them, especially if they're a dragon with this kind of Ruptured Sky or if they're Mufasa. So it is really helpful against those matchups. And in Aether Raids offense, people are going to be stacking up attacks, so Ruptured Sky is going to be giving you good returns. Attack Speed Unity is going to be helpful in Aether Raids defense because people do run Sabotage Attack and Tamari debuff daggers, so that can always help you get even more offenses and not be hindered by it. And Brattle Catcher can also provide you with the teleportation, which is really good for activating the Unity skill as well as Joint Drive attack. And Monica can get extremely fast and reach around like 80 speed, which is pretty ridiculous, and she can just quad attack a lot of safe tanks through their follow-up negation skills if you can provide her the Null Follow-Up. You can also use her in Summoner Duels S with Brave Crom, and Brave Crom is a pretty good teammate with her because he can copy the Desperation effect out of Monica and also the attack and speed buff, and he can also provide her with the Infantry Speed Tactic, which does give you the Null Follow-Up, which Monica really needs. So again, Ruptured Sky is going to be helpful in Ascended Idun matchup and also against Mufasa for giving you more damage output, especially if they are not running Deflect Magic. And keep in mind that in Summoner Duels S, you can just ban teams like Duo Thor, because Duo Thor can just use her Duo button and get rid of her visible buffs and also her Desperation effect and the Null Follow-Up that she can get. So definitely ban that unit for sure if you plan to use Monica. So she can work out in Summoner Duels, and Pulse Smoke is going to be a pretty good skill in Summoner Duels for resetting the pre-charged specials of your enemies, and it can also help you against Hardy Fighter far save units. And finally, if you want to use her in Arena, then she doesn't even need B-Dual Infantry 4 because she is a Gen 7 mage and she can naturally reach 180 BST with her super boon. So you can run Time Pulse and Null Follow Up and pre-charge your Ruptured Sky pretty much, and Null Follow Up is really helpful in Arena for bypassing a lot of the follow-up negation skills, and it's a lot harder to provide her with the appropriate support in Arena because you're going to be running the score sticks, so that's why Null Follow Up is going to be pretty useful. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to build up any of these units, and if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me a lot, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Monica's desperation against Duo Thor's dual button. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.